All across the undeveloped shorelines of the Bahamas, one species dominates. Let's talk about it. Hey friends, I'm here in the Bahamas and I wanted to talk to you about one of the most invasive plants in the Bahamas called the Australia pine. It's imported from Australia and Southeast Asia to the Caribbean, and it's been given the nickname Australia pine because it has these modified leaves that are segmented that look like pine needles. But it's not a pine at all. It is an angiosperm, an evergreen angiosperm, meaning it flowers and fruits. It may shed leaves in dry periods, and it is invasive for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is that it is a prolific seed producer. It produces these fruits here, kind of like a capsule, and in each one of these little openings, a winged fruit comes out of it called a samara, and gets dispersed that way. Each tree produces hundreds of these, and so it's a very prolific reproducer. One of the other ways this species invades or takes over is through its dense matting on the forest floor. It produces very thick mats of these modified leaves or needle-like leaves on the floor that are several inches thick and create a heavy mat that is hard for other species to penetrate when they're germinating as seedlings, right? So if you see here, you don't see a lot of other species really having success in this environment. Very thick mat, which is not great for developing seeds. All right, so let's look at the impact of these fallen Casuarina leaves on the ground and how they could be impacting the seed's ability to germinate, seeds of other natives or anything like that. So if we were to dig through these Casuarina needles, you'll see that it goes very, very, very far down. So I'm a couple inches down already, and it's still nothing but needles in the hole. And so this thick mat really does make it hard for a germinating plant to kind of puncture through. Also, the science shows that these needles alter the soil chemistry, making the soil less friendly for native species to germinate and grow. There is some evidence that the Casuarina may also be allelopathic, meaning that the roots below this surface of the Casuarina may be releasing chemical weapons that harm other plants as well. Now, one of the reasons this plant was introduced to the Bahamas is for soil stabilization and things like that. But what's interesting about that is that the Bahamas is predominantly limestone, so the trees can't actually root deep. They can't send a tap root down or anything like that. So they end up with a lot of surface roots, which makes them prone to falling over. Here we see an example of a root system. And if you can see, it's pretty planar. It's all flat because it's not able to penetrate down, but penetrate across. So these trees blow over quite easily. Now, as I stroll through this patch of Casuarina, you can kind of see the impacts. Here was another species, didn't make it. You can see how extensive the spread is, how much matting there is on the forest floor. Now you may notice there aren't a lot of Casuarina seedlings, so the needles can also have an impact on their own offspring as well. And so we see a lot of Casuarina seedlings popping up in areas that haven't been invaded or inhabited. When there is bare ground, we can see how aggressive this plant can be by sprouting new offspring from its own root system. So with all this invasion, I sometimes wonder what the Bahamian landscape might look without the Casuarina. It's hard to go anywhere in the Bahamas and not see these invasives everywhere. I imagine the forests would be a lot shorter and not have as tall of a canopy. The trees can't grow too tall here because they can't root that deep in the limestone, but I imagine it would look very different. Thanks for watching.